Hello, hello. Grown Black folks talk. Um, I don't know what to title this yet. There's so much going on right now, this week, for me personally, and of course, looking at the world around us. Professionally, something has happened that's good. I'm on vacation this week. I'm pretty much on vacation till July 5th, with some off time to July 12th. So that's a good professional thing for me, which is nice. But then that's good because I don't know if I can deal with all the changes in the personal and also just looking at what is happening to my people otherwise. I need a little room. I have tried to make some on declines, but the winter wind that was blowing through here all winter through the spring has not stopped, and neither have the allergies. At this moment, I'm boiling some very strong ginger tea because spring allergies are like, oh yeah, we see what the calendar says, and so I'm glad to have had time off to think, to journal, to consider. A lot has happened. The personal things I'm not going to talk about, of course. I don't do that here in general unless there's something there that I choose that I can share. I was alerted, thank you to Black woman minding my business, who also let it be known that uh, Black woman YouTubers are being attacked. Let me pass this word on to her. If you have a Black woman content creator, you might want to go ahead and update your passwords just in case. Make sure you have a strong password. What is that? Some capitals, some symbols, some numbers, along with all your lowercase letters. Strong password. Longer than 8 characters. They're harder to hack. And make sure they're not all just words. That's why you need to have symbols. And because any word just made up of 26 letters can be cracked by a good enough computer. So any combination with just those letters can be cracked. But the longer your password is, the more symbols, the more capitals and lowers, and the longer it is and numbers you have in there, the harder it is. So let me just pass that on. There's a lot happening. I guess it's kind of good that I didn't do the drags I was thinking about doing. But I'm on vacation and I'm in a contemplative mood. I take my time to really dig and think and listen to music and write about music on my writing platform. And even that's going through some changes this week. The mobile updates are kind of interesting. I know a lot of you want to do your social media on your phone. It might be better to think of it as something you do at a computer, at a job for right now. But that's something that goes into my crypto journey. I have some updates on that too. But I'm trying to rest and I'm noticing these big, big, big things that are going on around me. And I'm concerned about us deeply. And I want to do this in a way that doesn't bark at you. But if I say that you're in danger, you are, as an African American. Not because D. Matthews said so, because history says so, and because behaviors that have been divinely damned since the beginning of time, since like Genesis 4, you can get confidence with love, who is a goddess worship. Well, she corrected me. A relationship with the goddess is not kind of slavish worship that people think about. Um, Somebody like me, who is in a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, a Muslim, a Hindu, and a Buddhist, and sit down, all five of us, and we can agree this ain't it. Consequences coming. Because at the original, now each of us will tell you we're connected to the original source. Any of us will tell you that. I'm only here to represent Christ and his claim to be the maker and have heaven and earth. When God the Father said, let there be, God the Son is the reason that it happened. I'm only here to represent his claim. And of course, God the Holy Spirit was brooding over the face of the waters. And that's part of the reason I have this beautiful picture up. It reminds me of that. But it also reminds me of the calmer place that I want us to go to. I could have put up life and death, but that doesn't give you the power to do anything. Nothing that I'm going to say to you gives you the power to do anything. I don't have that ability. I am not divine. I cannot impart to you what you're going to need to deal with it. But if I tell you you are in danger, you are. We are at a point where we are not doing something our ancestors did to get us here. We as African Americans living today only are here because our elders and our ancestors saw a future they would never be in which we would be free, and they worked toward it. They put their personal differences aside enough to get us here. The case of I'm sorry, y'all, my sinuses are draining as we speak. Spring allergies, don't take a vacation. Carlishia Hood, Jerome Brown, Miss Hood's son, and Mr. Brown's children And the predictable responses in the comments tell me that none of us adults are doing enough thinking about what the impact is going to be on the next generation. And if do not have that, we are lost. Because now, with this Supreme Court decision, let me break this down to you very, very simply. It was not white people that came in and started that. That was Asian students, Chinese American, actually, if memory serves, that came and said, we have students, we know that with affirmative action, lower test scores from certain people are being considered, meaning that our children who have the test scores high enough to compete on the actual level are not being considered because of race. This is discrimination against Asian Americans. So that tells you that other groups of people are willing to play racial-based games against Black people. Never mind that we got everybody through the door. That doesn't count because conservative white people are happy to see this because now they don't have to do it. They have a 4-level buffer so that they do not have to engage in openly racist behavior. Clarence Thomas is the one who wrote in the opinion that the cases that established affirmative action for all intents and purposes have been set aside. Not officially, the Chief Justice would not say that, but Clarence Thomas did. For all intents and purposes, your rulings on affirmative action and why they were important, the way they were being applied, have been set aside. Meaning that either your children can compete to get into these top schools or they can't. Because now you have a level high playing field. And everybody in that conversation knows that our children are not being prepared and do not care. So that if we don't, forget it. See, Harvard has been sitting back ever since W.B. Du Bois came out of Harvard talking about, oh, isn't it an honor you're Harvard's first Black graduate? And he said the honor was Harvard's. Harvard said, no, sir, we'll find a way. And they have. You also need to understand that since 1865, 1, 2, 3, 4 generations of people have been in step. The fact that there was a Attorney General as late as 2018 named Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. Jefferson Davis, PGT Beauregard, Confederate President, Confederate General. The third. So there was a Jefferson Beauregard Sessions who was named after the Civil War. There was a junior. So there's a senior and a junior and a third. And that man is still alive and was just in office 5 minutes ago. Old Southern Democrats' last protege, Jesse Helms, Strom Thurmond. Their last protege is Joseph Robinette Biden. Now, he said all the right things today about this, of course, because this is things the Democrats are going to run on. But the Democrats are going to run on in 2024, but they can't change it. They're not organized enough to change it either. They're also not interested in changing it because if Joseph Robinette Biden is still around, he has some proteges too. Understand that other groups of people do not give a darn about you or your children. Diversity is an illusion in that respect because here's what people are in for diversity. None of the other people who come in here to give two dead flies about what we didn't get and what we can't get. Forget that. They're here for themselves. Why would we expect them to be otherwise? So the fact that Carlishia Hood and Jerome Brown did not know how to settle a dispute in a way that was not going to traumatize their children for life. And the fact that the comments were predictable. The comments were predictable. I read through a bunch of comment spaces. Very few people thought about the children who were involved here. It's no light thing for a 14-year-old boy to have to step into his manhood like that. And he can't step all the way in. He's 14. He's an adolescent. But he's forced to do a man's job because a man of 32 didn't know how to do kindergarten things and keep his hands to himself. I don't know what that conversation was, But obviously, neither of them knew how to de-escalate it. Now, it could be that he was just crazy. Anytime you got somebody swearing on their granny that they're gonna hit a woman in the granny's image, you might not be able to de-escalate that. The only thing you can do to de-escalate it is just walk away. I'm also going to suggest this: if you're gonna pack, don't leave your stuff in the car. As a black woman, if you're gonna pack, you're gonna go all. You need to go all the way. You stop playing around. If we're gonna sit up here and talk about black femicide and how terrible it is in Chicago where that case took place, well, that means be ye always ready. I had to use my evasive maneuvers, self-defense yesterday. I can get up and down a hill so much faster than people think I can in my size. I know my routes. And do you ever, worry when you step out of the house? No, because the Spirit of God always gives me the minutes heads up that I need. And I have my routes getting to near major streets and getting on and off the hill and getting in and out of the park, getting to different places in the park, figured out. It's second nature now. It doesn't bother me. It just kicks in. I have certain criteria. They are not race based. They are based on, do you look like you were doing something productive in society before you made it your time to deal with me as an individual or a group of men from a long way off? I'm watching your behavior all the time. If you don't meet those criteria, I'm out. It's not a moral judgment. It just has to do with I try to avoid trouble. 50, 60, 70 yards off, a football field off. I know how to talk to people to de-escalate situations. And I don't have enough pride so that I'm going to fight you over something. I'm not competing with you for a livelihood. I'm not competing with you for self-image. So I'm going to figure out how to be nice enough to you to get to somewhere where if I need to make a report, I can. And again, I plan where I go when I go out. If I wanted to be in trouble, I could have neighborhoods within walking distance. I could be in trouble in every day. Neighborhoods I live in and I walk adjacent to will have 3 police cars out on your dark skin behind in 5 seconds. And then I get questioned about my association with whoever it was because people in here don't play that. See, the world is going to go into a point where unless you look like and act like you belong on a class based level, you're not going to be there. You're not going to be there. Meaning that there's still an exit ramp for Black women that is harder for Black men because already Black men are seen as vectors of trouble. I see this in my own neighborhood. And a Black woman that deals too much with Black men is a vector of trouble. What this essentially means is that someone like me is probably going to end up, if I choose to stay here, it makes more sense for me to marry interracial. Doesn't mean that I'll do that, but it means it makes more sense. You avoid trouble in your neighborhood that way. And see, that's a different way of having to think about things. Of Black women making money. Her channel was talking about Black women she's been saying for a while after the affirmative action decision, she said it today in her reaction, Black women need to have Nepo babies. Well, what's a Nepo baby? A Nepo baby is a baby that has people that have networks that can make phone calls and access alternative rules to get them access to things. You do know there's different sets of playing fields, depending on who you know, who your daddy knew, who your granddaddy knew, in a patriarchy. But then again, there's also some women in there that have some influence with some men in there. Black women need to have Nepo babies. So you got to think a little bit differently if you're thinking about your life and the next generation in those terms. But if you don't know how to have a basic conversation without it going to beating and killing, and as adults, we are failing in this. We are failing in the YouTube comments. And again, if we cannot for ourselves think about how do we have a conversation with another human being that even if we disagree, can we affirm that human being and keep it from going to a killing? Now, I'm not excusing Jerome Brown. We know what the numbers are on that. We know where Black men are. That's we can look that up. And I need to say this to ladies. I'm not, I completely affirm Black women's right to free speech. And as United States citizens, we have that. And as human beings, we have the right to speak our minds. I need us to think though about situational awareness. Don't come and say out at one side of your mouth, 1/3 of Black men are felons, and it's not even about the felons because Army sergeants and nurses and attorneys are doing and saying unspeakable things, and financial experts, if you want to be kind to Anton Daniels, are suggesting genocide of Black women. So it's not even a question about Pookies and Ray Rays and class. No, no, no. This is a problem across Black strata, numbers of stratas of Black men who are perfectly happy to see Black women removed. So that means that your interactions have to be a little bit different. This means that, just like Sir Walter Jones said, it might be time for Black women to get out of Atlanta because there's some staggering numbers about the number of men on the Black men on the down low there. I mean, staggering numbers, up to 80%. I don't know if I completely believe that, but the number is approaching 80%. And all those women that came into his comments and said, yeah, it's about as bad as he said it was. You know, whenever San Francisco's in a conversation like that, and San Francisco isn't even the winner in that contest. But in the same way, Sir Walter Jones saying, if you're a single Black woman, no, that wasn't Sir Walter Jones. I think that was Tony Gaskins. Correction. Sir Walter Jones reacted to the Carlishia Hood, um, her release with her son. And he was the one who mentioned, okay, but we got to think about all sides of it. You know, situational awareness says if you say that Black men are like this, then you really need to think about how you approach and how you work with them. Some of you need to just go ahead and listen to Stephanie Perry, Adalia Borashade, Picky Girl Travels the World, Rashida Dow, Sheeta on a Loose, and get up out of Dodge, at least out of cities where clearly Chicago, Black women are 16% of the population and account for 52% of the kidnappings, the human trafficking, 40% of all, violent assaults and murders, 16%. And that's what happens. They are literally being hunted by Black men in Chicago. So if this is what we know is true, then you have to move different tactically. Number one, put your time in getting up out of there. Number two, though, if every man you talk to could be a killer, then probably you might want to remember what the Bible said about a soft answer turns away wrath. I know this isn't a popular answer because all of us are carrying these big chips on our shoulder about this, that, and the other. You need to get that chip off because right now, our community is doing this. There are virtuous circles. I'm going to try to make this go clockwise on your screen, even though it's not going to go, no, it's going to go this way. It's not going to go that way in front of me. Virtuous circles. Everything is in order. Everything's moving around. High discipline, high morality, high productivity circles. Everybody on the circle benefits. High discipline, high morality, high productivity. When people try to go against that and lower any one of those things, you end up getting into a vicious cycle. And the consequences of that trying to go backwards are hitting everybody who's involved. And then this could become vicious cycles because people react to what the person did before them and need vindication and need their respect back and feel unloved and then try to do things, get back. And eventually what happens is that system gets into a doom loop and goes to its destruction because eventually everybody exits who's ready to do better and needs to do better and sees it possible, leaving everyone else to spiral down to their own destruction. If we are not looking after the kids, the African American community is entering a doom loop. The doom loop will leave many of us dead and the rest in the permanent underclass who do not have sense enough to escape these patterns. So, in closing, what do I need you to do? Why do I have my beautiful relaxing background up? The most important thing for you to do, disconnect from the fear, disconnect from the anger, and rest and heal. If I had two recommendations for Black men and Black women to listen to right now to get their minds right, even before we get to Stephanie Perry and Adalia Borashade and Rashida Dow, because you still have to get your mind right. As Tony Gaskin said about passport bros in the world, until you change your mind about certain things, nothing changes. You're going to attract the same kind of women that want to use you everywhere. There are more therapy resources for Black people and about Black people. Please do not get thrown by Boris Lawrence Henson. That's Taraji P. Henson's foundation. There's also the Loveland Foundation. I'm going to put additional ones in the chat. Your spiritual life, you need to get serious about whoever you're relating with. I rep for Jesus Christ. I know that he can give you a new heart and a new spirit. And as you learn to walk in disciplined faith, the Spirit of God will show you how to avoid all this other foolishness. But if you're going to be undisciplined, you can never be on a virtuous circle. It's just not going to happen for you, ever. If you can't be disciplined in your faith, and you can't be self-controlled in how you work with yourself and other people and with God, you'll never make it. So you may need spiritual power above that. That's outside the scope of this video, but y'all know where I stand. If you got questions about it, I'll let you know. I'll let you know the answer to the best of my ability. If I'm not sure, I'll look it up. But I do know that you too have contributed to the situation that you are in. You are a sinner on an eternal level, and that you can be forgiven, and that shame and guilt that's part of that chip can be removed. That's up to you. There are other systems competing for attention and for relationship and for worship. That's up to you. But whatever it is you need to do to step back out of these vicious cycles becoming doom loops for the community, you are in danger, sir or ma'am. May I encourage you to find a way to rest and heal and find some peace. So you can pass that on to your children. All right. Thank you for listening. Y'all have a good day now. Bye.